And I first want to say what an amazing delegation we have to the State General Assembly. We really do. We've really been blessed. Two great, Tony and Tony. I used to do the two senators, now I do Tony and Tony. And Marty and Juan and Bob and Cam, Patty and Bill. And you know, I think a lot of times we have in the city, in the politics, it's hard to do our politics sometimes. We bump into each other, we don't always agree on every issue. Sometimes it's easier to remember the hurt or the disagreement than it is the things that we do agree on. And sometimes in a place like this where everybody is so different, they have different issues in their lives. We have our good days, we have our bad days. You occasionally have people who bring it together. The first person I ever met like that, and not everybody will agree with these things, was Vinnie Morrow. Johnny Martinez, who was on our delegation, was a guy who brought us, I think, a lot together. And Dyson was one of those as well. And I think he did it not because he yelled louder or any of the things that people joked about. It's just he knew he cared about the place. And if he could help people, he helped people. And I think at the end of the day, what it was just respect that we have for people like this. And you know, I make another observation. It's not 32 years, but when you're in these jobs for a period of time, people start saying things like, "Well, what are you proud of?" And you know, Bill got it right. It was the little stuff, just how you treat people. Do you really try? Do you not lie to them? Are you honest and straightforward with them? What can you do? What can't you do? And you know, you can't solve tomorrow's problems. If people come after us, they're going to have to solve tomorrow's problems. We don't build something so that somebody else's life is going to be perfect. You do what you can when you have the opportunity. You make mistakes. Some days you do it well, some days you don't do it well. And on most days, Bill Dyson did it pretty well and challenged us to find the best in ourselves to make this place, which is a very odd collection of folks, needs, opportunities, and urgencies, a better place. And I'd say one other thing. If we all expected a lot from Bill, he often expected a lot from us. And a lot of times, a lot of us didn't live up to his expectations for ourselves. You know, I think that in the end, that challenge and that expectations makes us better. City's a better place. I like to think I'm a better person for having known you, and I like to think all of us in this room who don't always agree on every issue do agree on this little thing, and it's not trite. These made a difference in our lives, in our city, and that's too bad.
Podium and have him talk a little bit to us, and I just, before I sit down, say thank you all for coming. It's really been my privilege to be the host of tonight's event, and I'm lucky to have Bill Dyson in my life too. Thank you, Bill.
Can you imitate Bill Dyson?
I don't know that. I'll try, man. Let me, first of all, say thanks to all of you for being here. It is an honor to have all of you here. In the time, what you have been privy to is a part of what my life has been and what I have always been taught to do, is that respect your fellow human being and to come to the understanding that my way is not the only way. Other people have thoughts as well, individuals. And keep as a focus the well-being of all. You've done it, in my estimation, as long as you're about the business of others. As long as you're about the business of others, nothing else matters. As long as you're treating people fairly, nothing else matters. As long as you're doing the best you can, nothing to be ashamed of. When you close your eyes at night, I shot my best shot. As long as you're doing that, there's no nothing you need to feel sorry for. You do that. And I have been privy to have worked with a lot of good people. You know, it is so easy when you're working with a lot of good people. You don't have to do as much. It's far easier then. It's when you seek to carry the load yourself, it gets to be rather difficult. There's not enough of you to go around that you can do it all by yourself. So as long as you're working with good people, and I've had that opportunity, I've worked with a lot of good people throughout my 32 years. And I take a great deal of pride in being able to share whatever it is that I know with someone else. I love doing that. And very often people may not fully understand what I'm doing. And I've heard that tonight. And very often that was deliberate. Because if you are spoon-fed and all of it is given to you, you don't have to think anymore. And I then do you a disservice by feeding it to you in a spoon. You don't have an opportunity to think about it. You don't grow. So I give you bits and pieces of it. You figure it out. I give you bits and pieces of it. You tell me the next thing to do. That way that it won't be long before they'll know as much as I. And they're able to do it themselves. They need nothing from me. Nothing. And hopefully my contribution has made them better people. And if I can make them better people, I ensure the future for us all. Because I'm not then relying on one. There's a whole array of people out there who can do it. Because they've done it. They experienced it. And if your heart's in the right place, and if people are able to see what those issues are, their hearts will be in the right place. And you do not have to concern yourself with what the outcomes are going to be for the future. And I think the intent becomes an important feature in all that we do. If you start from the premise that I want to make this better and I think I can, it won't be long before you can convince others that that's what you really feel. So I know that Bitsy mentioned something about the arts, and I know that I can hear people buzzing. Why would Bill be interested in the arts? Why would not? Why would not? Because arts matter to us all. And it certainly enhanced the life of all of us. Why would not do that? And one of the things I think I'd like to try to convey to people, do not ever let anything that you disagree on get in the way of respecting and appreciating your relationship with one another. Meaning that I can disagree, you know, and all of that stuff, but I'm not going to go to sleep hating you. I'm not going to engage in doing that. What I will endeavor to do is maybe just not interfere, but do what it is that I'm going to do. You do what it is that you're going to do. And I think working with good people, you know, I'd like to think that we have an event here that we're paying tribute and providing assistance for Barack Obama. But you know, the real value of this gathering here tonight is to pay tribute to yourselves. It is you. It is you that are laying the framework for what he's reaping the benefit of. It's you. Right? It's just caught on that, wow, that's what people are doing. Let me get in front. I don't disparage him for that. But I don't want you shortchanging yourselves, because you are the ones who are doing it. Look at the relationships that are here. Look at the dynamics that are here. Look at what it is that people do with one another here. Look at the experiences, the friendships, and all that are here. They matter, you know, and you're learning from all of it. You know, it matters. And I just can't say, I love being with kids. God, do I love being with kids. Because they get you out of whatever fog you're in. They get you out of it. So I get more from them than they get from me. I just love kids. Sincere, they may be bouncing off the wall, but they ain't hiding nothing. Whatever they feel, they're laying it out there. And if they're laying it out there, there is an awful lot for me to learn from while they're laying it out there. So, for me, it's an honor for what you have done here this evening. I had the opportunity last week, you know, and sometimes I don't want to talk about this, but I must, and that is, I went to visit my mother last week, October 1st, and do you know what it's like to go sit with an old lady, 88 years old, and we just sit around and bullshit? Y'all know what that's like? And you can look at her and say, Mama, you know, and you can just sit there, and I'll say it again, just bullshit. My mama, I did that last week, you know, and man, when it came time to leave, I don't think I've ever felt so badly in all my days. I just hated leaving that lady, you know, and as I'm driving off, there she's sitting on a bench, watching her Billy go. God, I miss her, you know, but I feel I must spend as much time as I can with her now. Because there may come a time that I won't have. So I'll do that now. I say this because I don't want to brag about my mother. I'm saying it because I want you to hear what I'm saying about what you do for others. It's a part of that humankind that you ought to never forget. It is the kids, it is each other, it is my mother, it is the relationships, it is you. That's what makes all of this work. You know, I cite the example, we were talking tonight, Peter and I, we were talking tonight about an event. You know, David Carter was here, he was there. About 20 years ago, I had a fundraising event, let's discover. And there came a blizzard the day of the fundraiser. Yeah, there came a blizzard. That's right. And what happened that night was that Henry Healy was hell-bent to be there. And I don't know if many people knew it, but Henry Healy was dying then. And Henry came out in the blizzard, had some of his sheriffs drive him there, and there we sat. As Pat said, Pat was there. We may have had 7 or 8 people, and Henry probably brought 6 of them. You know, and I always remember that whenever a group of us get together, and I remember Henry Healy was going to be the person of his word. I'll be there, Bill. Even though he was dying, I'll be there, Bill. And he was there. And I'm trying to convey here to people, here's a white guy. You hear me? Here's a white guy being loyal to me. Buddy, I can't forget that. Which means I owe it to somebody and others all over the place, regardless of their color, to treat them fairly, like human beings. So that's why I say Barack ain't showing us something new. We already do, right here. The kind of stuff that people proclaim a new day. Change. Well, we're already changing. Change. We're already done it. Change. We're on our way. Yes, we are right here today. We're doing it. Other people just caught on, capitalize on it, move on. You've done it. So don't ever lose sight of your contribution to all of this. Your contribution to all of this. And I have a lot of old friendships, you know. I was pleased that Tony talked about Doc tonight. You know, Doc and I had our differences, but we would never stop talking. And I saw Doc just before he passed. Rubbed his head and kind of combed his hair and kind of talked with him. You know, and I could tell that some of it was getting through because he would pause for a moment. You know, it's like he was, okay, Bill, I hear you. You know, and what that was, it was a relationship that took place over a bunch of years. A lot of arguments and disagreements that took place over a bunch of years. But the respect for each other never subsided. Never subsided.